There are people listening who are going to say, and who are going to take issue with some of your language and the way in which they might think you are equating Zionism with racism, right? They're going to say that Jewish people deserve safety and that they deserve to have a place where they can call home. And so that desire for safety should not be condemned or should not be labeled in a kind of a pejorative way. And they're also going to say, we don't support Benjamin Netanyahu. And in fact, we're horrified with what's going on. We're opposed to the way in which the IDF is slaughtering Palestinian children, is attacking healthcare centers. We don't believe in this. We want the best for Palestinians, and yet we see ourselves, we are Zionists because we want safety for Jewish people and a state where they can call home. How do you respond to that?
Because I've studied settler colonialism and I understand the question of Palestine of one of Zionist settler colonialism, by that process and by that definition, it is genocidal and colonial in nature to displace indigenous peoples from the land that is known as Palestine to create a homeland for another group of peoples, and to also, within that system, have a differing set of privileges through citizenship, through like how one accesses resources and land, but also gets punished through whether it be a military or a civil court system, all these different layers, it amounts to an apartheid system. So the way in which the state of Israel exists present day, because of the ideology of Zionism, creates the conditions for an apartheid system, has created the conditions for this genocidal war, this colonial war in Gaza. And so that ideology is at the root of these issues. And if we look back at the ideology of Zionism, there were other parts of this world that Zionists were looking at colonizing. It wasn't always going to be Palestine. But the question becomes, I think, when you have a colonial project anywhere, you end up ethnically cleansing, forcibly displacing, and often stealing land and creating the conditions for genocide. And that's true for Canada. That's true for the United States. That's true for Australia. That's true for a lot of places in this world where that colonial project has been rooted in certain kinds of values of a degree of supremacy, that the oppressor, the settler, the colonizer has more rights to life and dignity and safety and self-determination than the indigenous peoples of that land. So it doesn't really matter the identity of those peoples. That's wrong to do that, whether it be 100 years ago, 200 years ago, or present day. And I think people really need to contend with that the material actions is what matters. The material manifestations of Zionism on the Palestinian land and on the Palestinian body is genocide, is forced displacement, is ethnic cleansing, is occupation, is apartheid. It is these things that are horrible, that no one wants their religious or cultural or ethnic identity to be associated with, which is why we're seeing anti-Zionist Jewish people distance themselves from the state of Israel and say, not in my name. We're seeing this more and more. And I think it's a reflection of just how overt the genocide is and has been.
You've been listening to a clip of In Bed with the Elephant with me, your host, Adrian Harewood. Be sure to check out the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast and write a review. We love hearing from you.